whatever we want to call that, AI-powered ability to do some of that external research piece and aggregate that data in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Pulling together the insights from, the transactional. I mean, that's really interesting. I thought those were two really solid case studies, very specific.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our #1 priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. Similar to how a business model can't be purchased off the shelf, enterprise architecture is not something you can acquire ready-made either. Numerous factors come into play when defining architecture and determining suitable locations for inventory, allocation, and collaboration. Considerations for architecture may vary depending on factors such as speed requirements or financial control specifications per transaction. In the context of S&OP systems, a significant consideration revolves around whether execution models should be linked to planning or cross-functional planning workflows. The more interconnected these systems become, the greater the traceability achieved with transactions. However, this interconnectedness also brings challenges, making the system more complex to learn and utilize, as it necessitates a depth of cross-functional knowledge. So where does O9 Solutions fit in its capabilities, and how does it compare with other supply chain suites? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of O9 Solutions capabilities. We covered many grounds, including where O9 Solutions might be a fit in the enterprise architecture and where it might be overused. Finally, they analyze many data points to help understand the core strengths and weaknesses of O9 Solutions. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. And today we have another solution from the S&OP bucket called O9 Solutions. Super hot in the market at this point of time. So we are going to have a lot of fun reviewing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I'm going to start with my quick intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I'm going to move to Dave for his intro.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders in manufacturing, helping them to create and optimize systems, drive growth, and operate with excellence. And I come to you with more than 25 years of various operational leadership roles, including one or two different types of system implementations.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Of course, Dave. Thank you so much for being here. Your insights are always powerful, so always looking forward to learning from you. On that note, let's start with the quick briefing. And Dave, we changed a little bit. I think you missed a couple of shows. So now we have a little bit of written enforcement as well from the solution perspective. So I don't know how many solutions that we have reviewed in which you could attend, but for the most part, as I pointed out, that these guys are going to be part of that supply chain suite S&OP bucket, but in supply chain suite as well. In some of the ones that I remember, Dave, when I was talking about, we segment this based on 3 different legs or layers, how you want to put it. But for the most part, you are looking at network, planning, and execution. Okay. So that is the whole idea of the majority of the supply chain suites we have in the market. When we compare this with ERP, obviously ERP is a suite. In my mind, ERP should be called more of the execution suite because it does not have anything else. The only thing it has is execution. Obviously, it's going to be far thicker, doing execution for pretty much everybody in the company. The scope of supply chain suite is slightly limited. It is relevant in certain industries. It is not going to be relevant in every single industry. So the other aspect that we should be looking at is, okay, do you want to provide that cross-functional integration more from the ERP perspective, or do you want to have your connected planning? So in this particular case, I mean, they are going to be slightly more siloed. And when I say siloed, meaning when you are looking for pure play S&OP application, it is not going to have anything else other than just the S&OP function. When you compare this with the other supply chain suite, for example, let's say Blue Yonder E2 Open, they are going to have network. E2 Open is going to have network. Blue Yonder relies on somebody else's network. And then they are also going to have all of those execution components such as WMS, TMS. When you compare and contrast this with, for example, Anaplan. So Anaplan is going to be slightly more technical platform, and they are going to be able to do all of different planning cycles, and that is going to be your S&OP plus your FP&A plus your workforce, HR planning. So whatever you need to do when you design this more from the prescriptive perspective, only for certain industries, then you are sort of pigeonholing yourself in one particular bucket. So, but I mean, if you are going to be part of retail industry, then this is a great fit. So that's the closest comparison probably for O9 is going to be Kinaxis, because Kinaxis has S&OP. Even in their case, I mean, they are going to have network because they acquired a company. So now they have network. O9 does not have that. So even that is not the right comparison, I guess. Relex could be a great comparison, but again, they are positioned more for SMBs. O9 is slightly more upper mid-market enterprise solution. So I don't know if they are the fair comparison as well. So what else? We have already covered all of this, only S&OP. Yeah, so one thing that we have not touched so far, on these points is in the S&OP as well, there are going to be, or maybe in the network, there are going to be two aspects. Number one is going to be your supplier network. The number two is going to be your carrier network. And the data sets that you are going to have and the planning cycles that you are going to have, they both are going to be very different. So when you are looking for end-to-end planning, for example, your E2 Open would be able to do end-to-end planning. In their case, they are not going to have the carrier-centric information, the network. So obviously, you are limited in that as well. And these guys are most likely going to rely on your data. They are offering the technical platform. So obviously, you are not going to have as much data that you are probably going to have with systems such as your E2 Open, because they are combining network as well. So that's pretty much it. Dave, I don't know if you're going to have any sort of comments right now.
No, nothing to really add. I like the breakdown as part of the deck now. I think it makes it a lot clearer in terms of for reference for folks kind of looking to make some comparisons and where to start that. So I really like the change with the deck now and having this in here.
We are improving all the time, right? I mean, we have come a long way after doing like 200, 300 episodes. Okay, so some more comments, and obviously now we are getting into the real analysis from either they have done any sort of press releases. Typically, our information is going to come from there. If they have financial statements, we typically look for that. So this is coming from their either financial statements or from the press release. So in this particular case, number one, I mean, if you look at their financial standing, they have the investment from KKR, which is a big deal, guys. Okay, their valuation is almost like $1 billion, billion with a B. Okay, so so they are a big deal. They are definitely a big deal. It's a very well positioned in the market. They have a lot of enterprise logos. Their technology is going to be newer as well. A lot of platforms, even if they are going to have functional capabilities, their technology is not going to be new. So obviously that is also another factor why they might be winning. This is all coming from 2020, obviously. So they have been there for some time. Their valuation was $1 billion in 2020. So obviously, it'll be far more right now. And I don't know if they have exchanged any hands from the investment perspective. But again, very, very, very sound financial position. So this is another announcement coming from 2020. And here they are talking about O9 Solutions today announced that Future Group, a $3 billion, one of the India's leading retailers, will deploy the next generation of O9 platforms to integrate demand planning. So their use case is primarily from the demand planning perspective. So that is forecasting, then your replenishment planning and sales and operations planning. O9 will support Future Group 1,500 stores. Okay, so you are looking at the kind of magnitude that they are looking at, but obviously they are only responsible for all of those planning use cases. They are not doing everything from S&OP perspective that you are probably going to see in other case studies or the use cases. But there, if you look at the kind of heavy lifting that they are able to do for the size of the companies, obviously this is enormous. So 1,500 stores, 450 cities, and obviously they have international presence as well. In this particular case, they sold in India. So yeah, so a lot of international logos as well that we have seen under their banner. I'll move on to the next one. Dave, if you have any comment, obviously, chime in anytime.
Yeah.
So here they are talking about trade promotions planning and settlement. The only other systems where we have probably seen trade promotions planning and settlement is probably with E2 Open. I was thinking that maybe E2 Open is the only platform that is able to do that. They are taking a very different approach overall from the S&OP planning perspective. And the reason for that is because a large majority of the IBP systems or S&OP systems that we have in the market, some might combine your CRM POS data, but for the most part, they don't necessarily combine that. Okay, so it is going to rely primarily on ERP data, OMS. It might have a little bit of your WMS, TMS data, but CRM in general is a stretch for the large majority of the smaller S&OP systems. Okay, in their case, especially E2 Open, they do combine CRM data, and when you combine that, obviously, then it's going to be slightly trickier, because if you are also buying the execution system as part of the suite, and you are sort of combining all of these data sets, so you could be all over the place. So sometimes it's kind of trickier from the architecture perspective. Okay, what is going to be the role of your data warehouse as well as the analytical system that you are building? Otherwise, you are going to have a lot of hops back and forth, and it will be very confusing. Okay, what are you trying to do? So Dave, I know you are chuckling there. So
yeah, I mean, just it kind of goes without saying, but I think this is obviously one of the huge sticking points, right, from an architecture perspective, and generally and unfortunately, I would say often an afterthought, right? And we talk about this, we've talked about this previously, but your point's well taken in terms of anytime you're looking at, especially a solution like this that, to your point earlier, is a bit more siloed in terms of, complexity and functionality. You've got to be mindful of those touch points and how that data architecture, not just connects, right, but ultimately where that source of truth lands, and then how you're going to connect and communicate across that architecture. And that sounds really simple, but it gets really messy really quickly, because that source of truth issue really gets ugly. At least what I've seen, it gets ugly really fast. And it's compounding. That's the other point I want to make. It's compounding. So, we talk about, well, we could recognize an issue today, but if we don't turn off all of those touch points, we're just compounding the issue literally with every transaction. And I don't think people necessarily recognize how big it then gets.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I'm going to touch on some points so that people are not confused, who might be listening. So overall, I guess the intent here is still to do the study or the analysis. The intent here is not necessarily to use these data feeds in your execution system. There might be some scenarios where you might be using some data that is going to come out of this. For example, safety stock is probably the prime example, that you plan here and then you sort of put it in your ERP system, but you don't necessarily do the execution here. Even though we are calling execution as part of your supply chain suite, the boundary of that execution is going to be limited to your WMS, TMS centric functionality. You are not doing the real ERP execution. Now, there is another layer, from the industry perspective. For example, when you talk about retail, in retail, you don't have the real ERP use case. And that's why retail industry is so different. For the most part, for retail industries, again, unless you have some sort of, manufacturing, industrial distribution, retail, the majority of the intelligence might live inside your WMS, TMS, OMS, e-commerce, POS, and that sort of acts as the ERP system because the state of inventory is probably there. Sometimes, we have seen architecture where you are not even sending the inventory to your ERP system. So for the most part, the role of ERP system is just to act as the financial reporting ledger. It's really, really dumb, to be completely honest. Okay. So retail is a very, very, very different industry. And that's where in those industries, you have a lot more scope of the S&OP systems. But again, the intent here is the analysis. There might be some feats, but for the most part, that's the boundary of the majority of the S&OP and data-centric systems. So Dave, if you don't have any follow-up there, I'll continue with my commentary.
Nope.
Okay, perfect. So here they are also talking about one more platform that they have integrated. So they are talking about high radius deductions cloud. So this is a very, very, very interesting use case as well as integration. So High Radius is a fintech enterprise software as a service company specializing in automating the order to cash and treasury management processes. Okay, and if you're not familiar with this process, this is going to be the real bank management, cash management. So they are getting a lot of data from there and they are trying to overlay with your supply chain data, which is just mind blowing. Okay, have partnered to deliver an integrated solution to eliminate friction between your trade promotion planning and trade promotion planning, the way as well as settlement, obviously. So obviously this particular treasury management process is going to be used in your settlement because you need to get the real financial transactions. Now, overall, from the architecture perspective, this could be all over the place as well. So you need to be a little careful in terms of who is doing what. So if you are doing your trade promotion settlement here inside your S&OP system, which could be a great choice, but you need to still design the boundaries because the other settlements are still happening inside your ERP system. For retail, this might be okay because for retail, let's say if you're doing trade promotion settlement here, you are going to have freight and freight settlement. I don't know where you are doing that. So most likely you are doing that inside your TMS system. If you have your own internal fleet, plus you are going to have the external provider, so you are probably going to do your freight settlement there. And overall, from the trade promotion planning perspective, that's a whole planning piece, the execution piece, because the way this works is you are basically offering rebates to your suppliers. Okay, they are using the funds, you need to track those funds, they are going to have marketing campaigns, so there is a lot of back and forth in general. So that's where the whole planning component is handy, and the execution component of that is going to be very thick as well. But I don't know how much you are able to do as part of this, to be completely honest, because again, this is meant to be more of the planning function, but you are going to have other layers that you need to manage either inside your CRM or somewhere, I don't know where, but at a lot of places. Right, Dave?
Yeah, that's kind of the perfect point, right? I didn't even pick up on that from a closeout standpoint or settlement process, but it's back to what we just said in terms of kind of that cross architecture and understanding where information goes, where those processes live in terms of the bounds, and it gets complicated quickly.
Yep, could not agree more. Great point, Dave. Okay, so here we have some more comments. So here they are talking about build commercial plans for different time horizons. So that's going to be your long range planning, annual operating plan. Obviously, these all use cases fall within your S&OP category, but you are doing at the category level, brand level, customer levels, which is again very standard S&OP functionality in my mind, especially when you look at retail-centric S&OP systems. For other industries, the capabilities are going to be slightly different, but here you are definitely planning at the category, brand, as well as customer levels. Sometimes, these companies are also going to plan based on your season. Obviously, store is going to be critical here as well, depending upon how much planning you are doing, whether you are doing just the stores or are you also doing e-commerce. The planning could be different. The planning cycles are going to be different as well. So now they are talking about high radius integrated receivables platforms, automated reconciliation of deductions capabilities to streamline processes and eliminate invalid claims. So again, you are doing trade promotions claim management, and claim itself, it could be a lot of different claims might be there in the company. Here you are doing very enterprise grade claims management from the trade promotions perspective, and that could be a very thick process as well. So you definitely need to design depending upon how thick your processes are from the claims perspective. You need to figure out, okay, where they should live, but this could be a great candidate overall if they have capabilities for that. Now we have some more commentary here. So here they are talking about PwC indicates that there is $200 billion spent annually on trade promotions in the US alone. So obviously, I believe them, because the majority of the OEMs, they are going to have some of the, either rebates or marketing budget that they have to spend with their suppliers, and that's how they are able to sell, to be completely honest. So obviously there's a large chunk of money there that is being spent on trade promotions. Then they are talking about CPG companies invest approximately 20% of their revenue on trade promotions. I completely believe that. Retail and distribution partners with spreadsheets, and that's how traditionally this particular process was managed, primarily spreadsheets. Even for very small companies, Dave, I have personally seen, even if you're looking at, let's say, a 40, 50, $60 million company, even for them, the trade promotion planning could be very thick. It becomes very, very, very convoluted. Even if they have CRM, even after that, it's not easy at all, to be completely honest. Yeah, so there are a lot of problems overall from the planning perspective, but also from the settlement perspective. And again, if you don't have financial control there, this is not supposed to be your financial system, but you are managing your financials here. The process sort of belongs to your sales and operations, because the budget falls under your marketing or sales or supply chain, out of those three, to be completely honest, right? So they are responsible for that. Finance is going to say, hey, I'm giving you $1 million for trade promotions. Now you guys go ahead and manage. Now how they are managing is going to be a question. So it's always interesting. Finance typically does not get involved in this, because this is going to be slightly more micro for them than the macro perspective that they care for. Okay, so this is another story. So here they are talking about their integration with 4Kites. So here, and we have seen these integrations a lot. 4Kites, if you are not familiar with them, then this is going to be real-time visibility platform from the carrier perspective. So everybody needs this data, and obviously everybody's trying to hang out in everybody else's ecosystem. So that's why you will see scenarios such as the large majority of S&OP systems are probably going to be integrated with most of the real-time visibility platform. So again, 4Kites here is going to be the real-time visibility platform, more from the carrier perspective. So the global leader in real-time supply chain visibility have partnered to deliver an integrated solution to eliminate friction in complex global supply chains by augmenting O9's control tower solution with 4Kites real-time in-transit freight tracking. Okay, so that's how O9 is able to do their control tower. Now everybody in the market is going to claim that they have control tower capabilities, but I think what you should be looking at is, what is the sample of their data? Okay, where they are getting data from, how much control do they have on that data, and how comprehensive that data is going to be. That is going to dictate how reliable your KPIs are going to be, and how reliable your traceability is going to be as well. So in this particular case, obviously they don't have much control on this particular vendor, because they are simply integrating with them, as opposed to owning. In some cases, companies do have their own network, so they have a lot more control on data in general. Then they have those who deploy visibility at scale across inbound, intercompany, and finished goods to customers have an undeniable competitive edge. Suppliers, shippers, carriers, and receivers can share necessary data with relevant parties about their freight across all modes and geographies. Again, this is all about 4Kites. 4Kites is being consumed by O9, and that's how they are able to offer all of these capabilities. So whatever pitch we are seeing here is related to 4Kites, not necessarily related to O9, just to be clear. Including delivery ETAs. Again, delivery ETA data is coming from your 4Kites. Weather or traffic impacts and shipping delays, all of that, the majority of that is actually coming from 4Kites as well. So then you have use cases such as, okay, where is my truck? I know where my truck is and when it is supposed to arrive. So how can I proactively address any potential issues arising from it? Again, all of that is carrier-centric information. And that's what we were trying to communicate, that these two buckets are segmented completely differently. So one is going to be your S&OP bucket, which is going to be more from the supplier perspective, procurement perspective. And then there is going to be the carrier-centric bucket. And this one, 4Kites, is related to that carrier network, carrier data. Just to be clear, 4Kites does have their own network, so that's why they have this data. O9 is not going to have access to that data because they are slightly more technical platform. Now, Project 44 is, a rival for your 4Kites. They both have very comparable capabilities. So here they are saying, and they are integrated with both of them. So here they are saying Project 44 will provide a data signal to the O9 planning platform's control tower to identify any disruptions in the global transportation network. So obviously they are being very, very, very clear that this is all about your transportation as well as freight. Now they are saying Project 44 enables customers to tap into the most extensive and high performing visibility network across 145 plus countries, and that's a big deal, guys. Obviously their network is very comprehensive. Both of them, 4Kites and Project 44, they both are very, very, very comprehensive network globally, and that's why they are super hot at this point of time. Project 44 incorporates the context of the trip and comprehensive historical data, including historical carrier data, local weather and road regulations, driver hours of service, dock hours, and more. So everything is really related to that transportation as well as freight. That's what they are bringing to the table. Project 44 has expanded its ocean capabilities. So the majority of them, when you look at their data sets, they are going to be fairly comparable, but for the most part, they each are going to be stronger in certain modes, certain geography. So you need to read between the lines, how reliable and complete their data is. But for the most part, Project 44 and 4Kites, they are probably going to be the most comprehensive data sets available in the market. By leveraging ocean carrier schedule data to improve ETA accuracy and provide configurable alerts for efficient exception management in international and multimodal supply chains. So everybody is going to have very similar pitch, even though the offering that O9 has is very, very, very limited and narrow. But when you look at this and compare this with, let's say, Blue Yonder and E2 Open, they obviously have a lot more as part of their suite compared to what O9 is offering. Comments, Steve? No? Okay. All right, so I'll keep moving. So some more comments here. So this is coming from 2021. So this is obviously the fashion company and enterprise, as we all know. So here they are talking about leveraging O9's platform's capability to review how certain drivers, and then we have launches, promotions, influencer marketing, gift sets, and others are impacting baseline statistical forecasts. So that is all very S&OP centric planning. Obviously they are able to do a lot more. For example, influencer marketing is a new one. So obviously you need a lot of data sets to be able to forecast that, whether that is working or not. Gift sets is very unique as well. So they are able to do a lot of newer scenarios. They have a lot more newer capabilities that you are not going to find in your legacy platform. Dave?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, because I think obviously as times are changing, right? But more specific to the retail side of business, you can see just how powerful some of those newer insights would be, and having to go back in a legacy platform and try to figure out how to fit that square peg into a round hole, maybe more challenge than it's worth. So it's interesting to see where potentially you could make an argument that it might lack in some functionality or offering, it offsets in other places. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, could not agree more. Great point. Okay, so let's keep moving here. So here they are saying the O9 platform generates production plans based on constraints across all product categories. With its large portfolio of brands and a dynamic demand picture, the platform allows this particular company to make the best allocation of the constrained resources to the prioritized demands. The best allocation of constrained resources could be a very interesting comment. Now, depending upon how you are planning that, so there are two ways to plan. Number one is going to be, for your current execution plans versus whether you are planning for future or not. In this particular case, what you are planning is most likely for the future. It's not necessarily for your current execution plan in general. If you are managing your current allocation here, then you are going to get new order then your architecture is probably going to be all over the place if you are using this as your ERP system. So for the most part, when they talk about best allocation of the constrained resources, they are talking about what if scenarios, they are talking about planning for future, and computing your safety stock or whatever you need to compute based on the expected capacity. So this is really in the future. This is not your current allocation where you are executing your orders, just to be clear. Then they are talking about master data a little bit, applying new business defined prioritization logic. Again, planning system has a place, execution system has a place as well. So here what you are doing is really planning. Then they are talking about another company, Vestas, I guess, will improve its demand planning and review supply chain visibility, global and regional sales and operations planning, sales and operations execution. And they are talking about including the digital twin of the supply chain, big data, AI, ML, algorithms, knowledge graphs, and the like to help companies achieve new levels of productivity, speed, and expertise in planning and decision making. A lot of big words there, obviously. Everybody's trying to use those, wherever they can throw in, right?
Yeah. If you don't have the the data integrity or governance in place, then all of those big words are just that, and it's marketing speak. So you have to have underlying governance and integrity in order to really tap into the power of those tools. And if this is a platform that allows for that, that's amazing. But there has to be something to build upon.
Again, that's not the intent of this platform. Your master data tightness is going to come from your transactional systems. Okay, that's what defines what you are going to get out of it. Okay, you can correct the data, okay, if you want to do that, because your planning system is not supposed to be running your business. Okay, so what you can do is you can take the data, and if you feel that there are some corrections to be made, you can correct those in your planning system and then plan it. So that is a possibility. But for the most part, the more tight your transactional systems are going to be, the more reliable your planning is going to be. So they go hand in hand, just to be clear. And here they are talking about digital twin. Your digital twin is going to be really, really ugly. Okay, if you don't have your data figured out. So it's all about data and how the quality of data. The technology is not going to help you unless your processes and data, that is going to be intact.
Yeah, I think the other point with that, and we have talked about this previously, but I think at least my takeaway on this specific quote with the master data call out, this, from my perspective, really gets into terminology, cross-functional terminology. So in this scenario, I would not say that is what we would consider true master data. That's my takeaway. But again, I think the point is, in scenarios like this, you have to really clarify, because that statement alone, and then that statement on top of the kind of AI, ML, all of that could really misconstrue what you think this thing can do for you. So that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and you are right. I mean, in this particular case as well, master data is going to be relevant, but it is not going to be as relevant as it is going to be in your transactional systems. So here as well,
exactly. That's my point. It's not quite what we would consider a real look at master data.
Exactly. Okay, so let's keep moving here. So we have one case study, and in this particular case, they are talking about with O9, the company was able to do automate forecasting, replenishment, inventory management, and assortment planning in one single platform. So obviously they are able to do the majority of the use cases related to their S&OP processes. The company experienced significant food waste due to inaccurate forecast. So that is the intent of your S&OP system, and there is always a problem with your forecast. So obviously they are able to do something there. And some more commentary here. So they are saying each store assorts between 500 to 5,000 SKUs, and demand volatility is driven by weather, assortment, pricing, and local events. That is true. So even if you are going to have 5,000 SKUs, when you are looking at SKU plus store combination, that combination becomes very, very big. And we have seen cases where, even the supply chain systems, they failed. So for supply chain systems, you are going to have a lot more volume because they are running these parallel loads and doing planning. The ERP systems might be slightly tighter from the data model perspective, but they don't do as much heavy lifting overall from the processing perspective. So again, the intent of these two systems are very, very, very different. The planning systems are designed for study. Okay, when you are doing study, you need to run a lot of experiments. That requires very different capacity, very different data model than compared to your transactional model. So here they are talking about some more opportunity. So here company was able to do forecast at the store and SKU level, and typically that is a problem for a lot of companies. Incorporating leading indicators, typically you are doing planning based on your lagging indicators, so that's why planning is always off. But here they are able to forecast a lot of those things, such as your weather, local events. For local events, an app was developed to support baristas putting in their local knowledge about the market. For example, a football game in 2 days from now, or a graduation event from an university in the same sheet. Change in weather or a local event will drive auto replenishment based on O9's digital brain. So you can imagine the kind of planning that we are talking about. They have literally developed an application to capture that data. Again, when you are enterprise, you have very different problems. So if you don't have that data, you need to figure out how to gather that data, whether that is going to come from your users, external users, external data sets, companies, whatever you need to do. You need to gather a lot of data. But again, that is only from the planning purposes. The intent of this data set is not to impact your transactional state of the system. Okay, so here we have some more commentary. So the company needed to place a product order 1 year in advance, which was forecasted poorly due to reliance on lagging indicators. So again, they are talking about lagging. So that's where these leading indicators are coming, because they are developing these apps to be able to gather the data that can forecast something in the future, I guess, right? That's where your AI is going to be powerful, because it needs data from the future. So how are you going to get that unless you have these things developed, or you figure out, okay, where are you going to get that data from? So you need to figure that out. And then finally, you need to also ascertain the quality of the data as well. Otherwise, again, it's garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, I think that's two great examples, of what we've articulated earlier in terms of having the transactional side. You've got to have some place to house it. You've got to then understand what the relationship is. And beyond both of those 2 points, the ability to unlock, to your point, some of the, whatever we want to call that, AI powered ability to do some of that external research piece and aggregate that data in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Pulling together the insights from, the transactional. I mean, that's really interesting. That I thought those were two really solid case studies, very specific, obviously, and I'd love to dig into both of those. I mean, that's a very interesting use case.
Yeah, and this is where I guess one of the distinction that people miss is, to be completely honest, that the role of planning system is very different. Okay, the amount of data that it is going to need, your transactional system is never going to need that data. So people who are shoving all of these data sets inside your ERP system, you have no idea what you are doing, because ERP is not supposed to be a trash can to dump all of those data sets, to be completely honest. Okay, the planning system has a role. So all of these data sets need to go to your planning system. The transactional system, how many ever different transactional systems that you have, okay, regardless of ERP, POS, e-commerce, HCM, your TMS, WMS, all of these are meant to be slightly more transactional systems. They are not meant to be your planning system. The planning system need to aggregate all of this, whether you are aggregating all of this inside your data warehouse or in the planning system. These two also have very different role to play. We'll talk about those one of these days, but right now we are really talking about planning. So as part of planning, you are going to have your data warehouse, you are going to have the planning system, this planning, as well as any other planning that you might be doing. FP&A is a great example as well. Okay, so here we have some more commentary here. The company needed to place a product under order 1 year in advance, which was forecasted poorly due to reliance on lagging indicators. I think we have already read that. Yeah. This resulted in a large write-off of seasonal inventory. So the implications of these things are very high. You are losing money at this point of time. You just don't realize it. So the amount of power that you are going to get, you have no idea what you are missing if you don't have these things. The company was able to implement automated forecasting on products with high and low variability. Okay, so then they are talking about the company was able to perform capacity optimization planning. Again, they have used the word keyword planning, which I really appreciate that they are being really clear for warehousing and logistics to help minimize their total inventory cost and improve scenario modeling accuracy. This includes automated replenishment and procurement forecasting, which feeds back into the ERP system to assist with auto PO creation, which is the right architecture in my mind. Okay, they have done the right thing, to be completely honest. The only point that I would like to touch here is if your WMS TMS, they are not going to be bucketed as part of the same suite. So that's where the real distinction is. For example, let's say if you look at O9 versus Blue Yonder, in the case of your O9, you are going to have your WMS TMS. So when you are doing warehouse planning, it is going to be part of the same system. In this case, you are probably using two different systems. So that's where the fall off is going to be a little bit. So in supply chain, if you look at the overarching construction of the supply chain suite, for the most part, the majority of the systems that are bucketed as part of supply chain suite, they sort of move together. And that's why these companies are trying to combine all of them and trying to create the suite, because in most industries that are going to be supply chain heavy, in those, these systems need to work together as part of the same suite. The only disadvantage in taking the S&OP approach or the supply chain suite approach is going to be that your FP&A is not connected, which is okay, which is sort of the macro view. So you need to decide whether you need to connect your planning or you need to connect your supply chain, I guess, where the biggest pain point is for you. And that is going to be an architectural decision that you have to make. Based on what you care for more. So if you don't have any comments, I'll move to the next one. Okay, so one more case study here. So here they are talking about implemented a multi-dimensional model with attribute-based aggregation and disaggregation to analyze and enrich demand planning. Now, one of the systems that we have reviewed, and I don't know which one was that. I think Alamica was really heavy in your process-centric industries. If I remember correctly, I guess there was another one that was really strong in your chemical-centric processes. I don't know if it is Logility, but one of those, Dave, I don't know if you recall or not.
Oh.
But when you are going to have a lot of lots, attributes at the lot level, serial number level, you are going to have bombs. I mean, that planning is very heavy in general. Okay, one of the recollection that I have is Connexus was really strong with manufacturing, with BOM planning. By the way, retail planning and manufacturing planning, these two are very, 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 very different. Okay, so when you look at the manufacturing planning, the planning has to work for your independent as well as dependent demand. Okay, in those dimensions. So not a lot of systems are going to be friendly for that, especially if they are designed for retail scenarios. But when you are planning at the attribute level, you have no idea how much complexity you are introducing and how much firepower you are going to require. Because anytime, whenever you introduce another dimension with any of the planning systems, that's a lot of heavy lifting for a planning system as compared to your transactional system. In transactional systems, you are not necessarily running the whole database, as your one planning workload. The scenario is not the complete database. So that's where I guess the distinction is. So that's why you need to really pay attention. You need to do probably performance benchmarking before you buy these systems, because sometimes even minor dimension could fire back for you if you don't understand the performance implications of these things. Then they are talking about the company can perform end-to-end pegging. Pegging is a very thick process in general. So these guys are able to do that. And again, you require a lot of data. So obviously the integration is going to be super tricky to manage or plan for the pegging process. So that's a big deal in general.
Sam, I'm not sure if I've heard that term. What does that refer to?
So in the simplest manner, if I could explain, this is going to be, so when you are going to have dependency across your jobs, okay, that's what is your pegging, because you are sort of allocating this for either a particular order. So there is a whole algorithm, the way this works.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. So that's what they are trying to do. And that's why they are saying the company can perform end-to-end pegging, responding to demand with visible supply pipelines. So obviously that is really the matching of your supply and demand. That's what it is. I mean, but allocation is that as well, right?
Yep.
But there is a far richer algorithm in general, for pegging. Effective utilization of available capacity and scenario modeling to evaluate multiple options to solve shortages quickly. For S&OP reviews across product demand and supply, having many different source systems. So obviously they have a lot of them. They are saying they were using two different systems. This is possible as O9 provides the primary engagement system for all SAP. SAP meaning supply chain planning related data, eclipsing the source systems such as your Logility they were using for demand planning. And my understanding is that the reason why they would use Logility is because they had those attributes, and Logility is really strong in those process-centric verticals. And then they were using Oracle ASCP for supply planning, which is fascinating. But you might find all different systems in larger enterprises depending upon how much power or struggle in politics is going to be there. So it's mind-blowing that they were using systems such as Oracle, but they had to go for O9, combining these two, which is just interesting for me. Now, here we have some more case studies. So they are also talking about collaborative workflows, and collaborative workflows, we have seen this term used with your E2 Opens of the world. And the reason why E2 Open is very powerful is because, they are able to have all of these portals. So Dave, the example that they gave about this mobile app that they had developed, right? So you are actually developing this mobile app from scratch. But when you are going to have these partners, you are going to have your franchise owners, you might have several different external, internal entities, and you need to collect data from them, as well as you need to provide data to them as well. How are you going to provide that? So typically, that is the collaboration workflows where you need to collect this data, and that's where the portals are going to be super handy as well. So that is what is slightly more execution component. So in their case as well, they have a little bit of network, a little bit of execution component, even though technically they are not network and execution, but they are doing a little bit because you need to get that partner data, and that's why they are able to handle those collaborative workflows. So a lot of capabilities that these guys are going to have, they are very similar to your E2 Open. Then they are saying the company is a configure to order business, and configure to order business is going to be far more complex than any other manufacturing businesses, and these guys are able to handle that. So that's a big deal, guys. Then they are saying they can drive the configured product group forecast and key component demand by analyzing potential scenarios, option forecast, and using a bill of material, attach rates to plan component orders and inventories. Then they have some more comments here. They provide end-to-end planning software, including demand planning, supply planning, S&OP control tower, inventory planning, production scheduling. But again, you need to be careful there. Okay, so obviously they are using the term planning, which I appreciate, that they are very careful in using that, but at the same time they are using other terms as well. For example, inventory planning could be all over the place. Okay, so here the only inventory that you are planning is from the reference of your planning systems. It is not the actual inventory planning. Then you have production scheduling as well. So you are doing planning of the production scheduling. You are not necessarily scheduling inside this system. There are scenarios in which you might manage some of the scheduling here as well, but for the most part, the scheduling is happening in the execution system. O9 Digital Brain is integrated with the ERP system. As obviously, they are sitting on top of the large enterprise systems. SAP S/4HANA, Oracle is going to be one, and in their case, they are using SAP S/4HANA as the ERP, Salesforce as the CRM, and surprisingly enough, they have a TMS from Oracle. That's a crazy combination. You never want to do that.
Well, and I'm kind of surprised. I mean, pleasantly surprised, right, to see a business like this modeled out in here. So really interesting from a functionality standpoint.
Yeah, so in enterprises, you are probably going to see most vendors, but in general, you definitely don't want to have rivals having dinner at the same dinner table. It doesn't work, guys. Yeah. Okay, so here the systems, and surprisingly enough, the systems that they are claiming that they have replaced is Excel. Can you believe this, guys? Which is just mind-blowing. The integration capabilities in both SAP and Infor-LN ERP, so they were using Infor-LN as well, and SFDC CRM, just mind-blowing how many different ERP instances are there, but this is very common in enterprises. Okay, so we have one comment. Let's take that. So we have comment from Anders. Anders, thanks for joining. So he is talking about reforecasting. Impressive that they are combining weather and events into forecasting demand. You will only know it will be sunny for the Super Bowl a few days in advance, which seems like a very short window to get actionable data. For the most part, the way the planning cycles work unders, you are absolutely right. But at the same time, the kind of AI capabilities that these systems have, you don't need to be completely correct. I would say as long as you are going to be directionally correct, you are probably going to be okay. So this data can still be used because obviously the weather data that you are getting is also coming from some sort of models. It is fairly reliable in my experience. I would not say that it is always going to be reliable, but it is generally fairly reliable. You can plan your activities based on that, and that's how we all plan, I guess. So, but great comment. Okay, so one more case study. So here they are talking about across an interconnected global network to handle the digital global distribution requirements from company-owned manufacturing plant subsidiaries and third-party manufacturers. Then they are talking about conducts BOD-based network planning, accounting for global dependent and independent requirements. The time-phased roll-ups allow for rapid inventory moves and align customers and supplier calendars, which is again a big deal, guys. The only system that we have seen which was really strong in manufacturing is probably Connexus. So that is probably going to be the right comparison. I don't know how strong systems such as your E2 Open, Blue Yonder, even though they are being used in manufacturing settings as well. But depending upon the scope, for what they are being used, when you look at the very, very, very heavy dependent demand, that could be very heavy. So that sometimes could be a struggle for retail-centric systems. Then they are talking about they respond to customer demand with a supply chain updated with frequent refreshes of on-hand inventory receipts, ASNs, exception management, workbenches, target shorts, surplus lot sizes, ship day exceptions. Again, that is very retail-centric planning in my mind. Ability to connect and integrate with diverse ERP landscape. They have SAP, they have Glovia, and Legacy. So they have three different ERP systems. Glovia is very common in automotive, and for the most part, this is probably going to be an automotive company. Homegrown solutions, SAP and Excel is what they have replaced. Dave, I don't know how many comments you're going to have. Do you want to keep going, or do you want to?
Yeah, we can hit one more unless you've got anything else in the deck you want to cover.
No, I think we can hit this one, and then after that we can open up for comments. So here they are talking about there was no holistic view of open to buy across the enterprise, and they are open to buy again. That's a very retail-centric term. On the retail brick and mortar channel, and were built in Excel spreadsheets that were cumbersome. Omnichannel view of open to buy across the enterprise, encompassing physical stores and e-commerce channels. Typically, that is very, very, very difficult in general. So here, the only thing we are talking about is planning, not necessarily execution. When you get into the omni-channel scenarios of traveling your transactions from your e-commerce to your POS to your ERP, it's all over the place in general. So you can never count on that. So probably planning system is going to be the best system for this, I guess. Then they are talking about pre-season planning and in-season forecast, as the processes were disjointed, non-standardized, and managed in silos. Guys, retail is a complex business. Your processes are probably going to be fragmented anyways, to be completely honest, because the procurement teams are going to sit in many different systems. They need to be part of your merchandising, they need to be part of your planning, but they also need to be part of your ERP system. So it's always tricky with retail businesses. Pre-season targets and in-season performance, so I don't have anything else there. They are talking about knowledge graph, which is a critical function of this one, but I don't think you can do entire merchandise operation here. The only thing you can do is planning, which is very critical for retail-centric businesses. I don't have anything else, Dave. I'll open up for comments now.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the few takeaways, and to your point, we've done quite a few of these, and this, I would say, is probably one of the better solutions from a kind of marketing alignment perspective, right? Yeah. Like, this is a planning tool, okay? And it's not trying to be something that it's not. And I really appreciate that, honestly. I think it's very clear. I was really impressed too to see not just the retail functionality, but the configure to order on the manufacturing side, and that's some really solid use cases, which again I really appreciate, because we talk about it often, but when you're evaluating any of these systems, unless you know what exactly you're trying to do with it, how it fits into the architecture, it's really a challenge to understand if this is the right tool. So it's like, for all of those reasons, it's like hey, these guys are doing it right on the marketing side of things to really try to bring that message together and to make it a bit more, a bit easier to, digest and to understand how would this fit into a business like ours. And a nice kind of range, I would say, from, upper mid-market SMB into enterprise, obviously, with just some of the name drops, and logos that they had in their materials. So
so I'll provide some more colors there. The reason why their marketing is slightly stronger is because of the background of the executives, to be completely honest. Okay, and these guys are slightly newer in the market. So they are still doing a lot more consulting in general. Obviously, there are going to be pros and cons of both of these approaches. So in this particular case, they actually developed that mobile app. Can you believe this? Even though they are a product company.
Interesting.
Exactly.
That'd be a great use case to dig into the details of.
They can sell mobile app as well, right?
On a high level.
Exactly. So the background matters. And right now, I think they are acting more as the consulting company, to be completely honest, along with the product company, but that is not going to be the experience that you are going to get from the other software companies. And that's why their marketing is slightly more sophisticated as well, because again, they have very hands-on experience. So depending upon who is writing, what kind of work they are doing on a daily basis, that could drive a lot of these things.
That's that's a great insight right there, and something to be paying attention to, because to your point, as this continues to grow, that will probably change. Right? I would imagine. You don't know for sure, but I would imagine that will change over the course of time.
But there is always going to be a drawback for every single decision as well, right? There is always a con with this as well. So when you are eating your own dog food, for the most part, the challenge that you are going to get is the documentation is not going to be as great. So, so yes, the consulting is a great aspect that you are getting a lot of answers, but overall the product documentation is not going to be as good unless they release it for external partners. External partners are using it, customers are using it, then the documentation is going to be better.
Maybe they'll train one of those AI-powered brains to be able to answer their questions.
Hopefully, one of these days, AI can document the software, because that is my personal challenge, to be completely honest. Anything else, Dave?
No, I don't think so. Yep.
Okay. Amazing, guys. So that's it for the show. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another topic. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Sam.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you'd like to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's THECRYSLER.CLUB. If you'd like to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.